And she wasn't really understanding like what she was doing when she says that she's going to leave social media. Even in the talk that she gave, she was like, well, maybe I shouldn't have gotten off social media.
What's going down? It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. I'm trying to be very enthused about this intro. It's hot. It was freezing. Now it's hot. And yeah, the world's ending. But what's going down? Thank you for tuning in and appreciate you joining us for yet another week of the new MEC 2.0 podcast. If you want to support us, aside from liking this, aside from sharing the podcast, aside from leaving a comment and watching the whole episode, do yourself a favor and get 3 free months of premium music distribution. Get all your beats, get all your songs that are just sitting on your hard drive on the internet. You don't want to ever just leave music on a hard drive. It doesn't make sense. So go to twolost.com and use the code MEC for 3 free months of premium music distribution. Upload all the music you can in 3 months. That's a lot. That's a whole catalog and could be multiple EPs, multiple albums. It's just smart to get it out. It's not doing you any good sitting there. I had to learn that the hard way. Hey, Erinn, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You know, I like to always start out with wins. So I want to hear from you guys, like what you guys got accomplished in the past week. And I might switch things up when it comes back to me. But Payne, or actually Erinn, what was your win from the week?
This past weekend, one of my companies celebrated our 1-year anniversary with a new event offering. And it was great because it really did feel like a celebration, but it was also like foreshadowing for our future. We had a new concept. Our company's called Where Y'all At, though. It's based in Texas, Austin to be specific, which is where I'm at right now. And yeah, the event series is called Auntie's House. It was a real, true, like experiential activation event. It wasn't a party. At the end, we turned off the lights so people could dance, but each thing was hyper specific. And so it was hard to describe it to people before it happened. But when they got there and it happened, people were just like, this is incredible. It really feels like I'm hanging out at my auntie's house. So, I really enjoyed it and I was really encouraged by it and happy to celebrate 1 year as a company. Happy to start being profitable. We've been breaking even, which is great for a year one company. But yeah, I'm just excited. I'm grateful for 1 year and grateful that the event went off well. So there's been a lot of wins this week. I also spoke at UT on Monday. So it was like Sunday was 1 year anniversary. And then Monday I spoke at the University of Texas, Austin, which was super dope. Shout out to the Longhorns. Kevin Durant went here. A lot of people went here, but Kevin Durant is my favorite Longhorn that I remember watching playing here. So being able to speak at a university is a dream because I've always seen myself do it. And now I have a consistent like mentorship role with them, at least for this semester and next semester. So I'm really excited and encouraged by that. The future is bright because the students are actually really dope. I spoke at their business school because they have a record label there. So yeah, I don't have a degree and I spoke at a university, which is really cool.
Dope. Payne, what you got for us?
A lot of little wins. I think what was cool to see this week was, and it happened not last week, but the week before with the Kanye episode about the 808 bass frequency. But this week, just in a couple of days, we hit over 10,000 on a clip from that episode. So for me, that feels good because it shows that people are listening to the content, even though we get kind of deep into the weeds. And this one had to do with sync and the legalities of using royalty-free samples and loops. And then the lawyer that we kind of, that I personally disagreed with, replied, and it was a very respectful dialogue. And then so we networked, and hopefully she'll be on here in the future. So yeah, I think there were multiple wins on that because there are more eyes on the podcast, and even disagreement with another professional who behaves as a professional can be productive and lead to collaboration.
And I'm going to share what maybe an L, maybe a W. I don't know, but it's something to take some learning away from, because we had a meeting with somebody that is very well accomplished in the animated space, because we pitched an idea for an animated series. So in that meeting, obviously we are excited because this is a person that can help like get the ball across the goal line if he really likes what's going on. He has his own animation company. Meeting went well, was responded to really well. We turned around a deck. We put together a deck quickly and turned it around within like 2 days. So obviously feeling really good. And then silence. So followed up on Monday. And again, this may turn out, because you never know what people are going through. You never know why people aren't getting back to you. The message here is to keep on pushing. Like, I was working on a deck last night for a new show, to get that to somebody else, because you never know like who is going to respond when, and you don't know why people aren't responding. So I don't yet know if it's an L. I don't know if it's a W. I guess it's a W regardless, because we now have a very dope, polished deck to pass on to someone else should he decide to pass on this opportunity. But just know, because people might look at Big Job's pages and be like, oh, he's got almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube. He's got close to 1 million on TikTok. He's got 3+ million on Facebook. Oh, they don't ghost somebody with that size audience. It happens, maybe not to like Kevin Hart status, but it happens to people that even have a good amount of traction. So don't get discouraged. Just keep on pushing forward and keep on looking for the next opportunity, because you never know, when a seed that you planted is going to sprout. So I don't know if it's a W. I don't know if it's an L. But that's a very real experience that I wanted to share before we jump into some of these topics. And I guess I'll go ahead and kick it off, because we have to bring a topic back from a couple of weeks ago, because I was very wrong. I was very wrong about Ari Lennox. This is what she posted last night. It says, Interscope and Dreamville have been playing with me all month. I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired of people treating me like they're sorry for me and like I'm the face of mental health. I'm okay. I've never been happier. What I don't like is being signed and lied to and manipulated. Not one person at those labels ever knew how to market or protect me. Y'all don't know the half. Constant letdown and neglect. This industry stuff will never be for me. And in addition to this, she also went live. I'm not sure where it went live, because I saw it on YouTube. There's like an 18-minute clip where she's talking about the experience and gives more specifics. Payne, you can take this down now. But I'm
reading some of the advice that people that aren't in the music business are giving to her, and that's hilarious.
But what I was wrong about, and probably naive about, is because I thought like they were prepared for her exit from social media. I still think that she can make a lot of money if she takes her community private and is only on YouTube, only does the newsletter. I still feel strongly that that can be the case. But what I was wrong about is that their label was prepared for the exit and maybe even on board, because if there's somebody at the label that knew the potential and opportunity of monetizing a community like hers, they would be more excited and lean in, as opposed to not having a marketing plan, not be ready. And that's what Ari Lennox is accusing the label of. And I was kind of shocked of how little that Ari Lennox knows about social media, because in the 18-minute clip, she says a couple of things that are a little concerning. One, she was like, oh, I have like 700,000 subscribers on my YouTube. Like, I should at least have 700,000 views on the video. That's not how any social media platform works.
If only. Oh my God.
So if like Job, like everything Job posts does not get, he's got like 1.7 million on YouTube. We do not get 1.7 million views on every single video. So just that comment alone lets me know that she doesn't really understand social media and she wasn't really understanding like what she was doing when she says that she's going to leave social media, because even in the talk that she gave, she was like, well, maybe I shouldn't have gotten off social media. Maybe social media is the only way that I can promote my music. So I'm assuming you guys didn't hear the 18-minute. Obviously, you just probably read what I just read, right?
That's sad. Ari Lennox called the MEC. One of us alone could help you, but all three of us got you, because it's unfortunate, especially because reading it in my head, I was just thinking, yeah, they put like kid gloves on her and they're like, oh, she's fragile. This is probably because her mental isn't doing well, because it doesn't make sense to get off of social media. And it makes complete sense. Anybody from her label, please go back and watch our episode a couple of episodes ago where we talk about just lightly how encouraging it is that she's doing this. Like, she literally could be the first among first, because a bunch of indie artists are trying to do this with way smaller audience bases and way less resources. Even James Blake, shout out to him. Huge audience base, lots of resources, but it's just coming through him. It's clear his label isn't involved in what he's trying to do. So it's like, you don't have to go with Even. You don't have to do the same thing that Smino did, where he released like 100 tracks on his SME player on his website. You don't have to do that. You can actually still be releasing music through Dreamville and Interscope. You can still tour. Like, there's so many easy creative ways to monetize the audience, which is, I'm assuming, is her label is scared that people won't convert to listen to her music, which is weird, because one of her higher conversion factors versus her YouTube is the fact that she has so many monthly listeners and so many people following her on platforms like Spotify.
Yeah.
So they're immediately going to be notified. But I don't know. I just think it's I try not to be like a label hater. I think all of us try to be careful about that, because I'm not a label hater by any means. But my biggest hang up with them is that they have no imagination. That's one of the things that I spoke about at UT. I was like, learn the game. Y'all need to learn the game, but you don't have to play it. Once you learn it, get proficient at it, and then play your own game. Like, it doesn't make sense to say that you have to. We're in the middle of a social media jolt. The things that people have emphasized for so long are already phasing out of mattering, but won't matter next year. So if you guys are coming up with a digital strategy based off of what you know about Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, even that, right now, you're wasting your time, because it's transitioning rapidly to something that labels wouldn't be a fan of, and to something that direct to consumer would favor. So I won't say much more, because we talked about it in the previous episode. I just think this is odd. I think it's weird.
Well,
I think she needs people around her who understand what's going on. I wonder what her management team is doing. I wonder if she told everybody and they didn't support it, and then she announced it and now she's catching the backlash. I don't know. I don't like it. It's like, she's so successful. Like, y'all should be trying to accommodate her. Bring in a consultant. Think critically. Like, I want to know the back end, though, because I will say artists paint things in a unique way. And I have to ask somebody who's managed artists and had crazy stories spun about me and assumptions made about me based off of a couple of tweets or conversation. I will give the people around her the benefit of the doubt, but if they have a ton of pushback, I would just want to know why, because I'm like, there's so many options here.
Yeah. My message to Interscope in Dreamville, like, I promise you, like, if I was to work with you, or a lot of people I know was to work with you, I don't know what you made last year, but I promise you, even if she wants to get off social media, we can at least double that in the next year. Like, to me, this is a layup. And if you guys are discouraged by her wanting to get off of social media, then you're probably not the right people in the roles that you're sitting in. Because if it's a money thing, you can make a lot more money with what she wants to do. The last thing I will say that was very concerning as well was about the newsletter. She mentioned the newsletter when she was speaking, and she said, oh, I didn't know that they were getting emails that they were using to not only promote my music, but it's also promoting all the other Interscope artists as well. And I think I mentioned that because when when I went through, like, and actually Interscope was the first button that you click to give your permission to, like, if you want to receive emails from Interscope, you click that button. If you want to receive emails from Ari Lennox, you click that button. You
saw that right away. You immediately brought that up.
Yeah, it was the second button. So that lets me know she's not going to own this list. She probably won't even have access to this list when she departs. And that's going to suck. Anybody that's signed to a label, please ensure that you have access to the data that you collect, that you own the data that you collect, because when you're not signed to that label anymore, that data is going to be extremely valuable. Yeah. So, Pam, I don't know if you have anything to weigh in on this particular topic, but we can move on. I just was naive in thinking, like, hey, they probably have things set up ready to go for this transition off of social media. Now she's saying that she might get back on social media, and it's a huge mess. And it's unfortunate to see this go down with somebody so talented.
Well, the honest truth from my perspective, having had some dealings with a label, a major label, actually being signed, they don't know what they're doing half the time when it comes to the music. So when it comes to an artist's mental health intersecting with social media strategy, they're absolutely lost. I mean, they'll sign an artist and don't know what to do with them after they dropped a bunch of money on them. That's the one thing they should be able to do, and oftentimes they can't.
It's wild that's, and there's some people at labels that know what they're doing. So I can't say everyone, but it's wild that there's even anybody at a label that doesn't understand social media or doesn't really understand how to allocate a budget effectively. Like the internet.
How is that wild? They're not hiring respectfully super skilled people. They're hiring obedient people who will fall in line with their system. And then they'll have some bright spots, but not a lot.
It's wild because social media has been around for so long, and some of these basic things are parroted over and over and over and over again on social media. And it's like, you're not going to adopt like any of this. So
but
to me,
being good at social media is about adaptability, and that's not what they are. They are not adaptable.
But the labels are in the business of making money. Like they want to make money. So you would think, after over a decade of this, you'd put somebody with some type of sense that understands something in these seats to drive. I mean, and I do know that there are some solid people in some places, but if there are people like this in any seats, that to me, that's wild. I've never worked at a label, so I've never, I don't.
It's kind of like being the tall guy at your high school. You're playing basketball and your team is winning because you're because you're dominating, right? So you're not going to improve your skill set because you're dominating. And then you just change the game or acquire something. You know what I'm saying? You just move the goalpost if you start losing or you become a conglomerate. I just think imagination is typically reserved for people with disadvantages. So not to say that most people at labels don't have some sense of imagination. It's just you're sterilized when you come in if you want to stay. And that's like from friends that I know at labels, they just get so sterile because they can't do anything. They're like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to. I think that's why none of my stints consulting with labels have lasted long. It's like I'll finish my term, ask for an evaluation. Everybody says, yeah. And then I don't get called back. And then they have some other random problem some other label does. Then I get called over there. They half-ass implement it. They change on me. I do. And then they're like, yeah. And then I don't get a call back. Like these people don't have an imagination or the purview to understand an imagination. And this is not a shot at every label everywhere because I don't know y'all. I'm just saying my experience is that even if you are an imaginative person, you probably don't have enough power to move the buck forward. And then if you do, it takes so long to move the buck forward. You're late and behind the trend. And then you have to go back to the same shit you've always been doing so that you hit the KPIs. It's just like rinse and repeat bullshit, which is weird.
Yeah.
I want to let's table this because I want to talk about my experience with a label deal that went in this direction. But there were a lot of lessons learned. Maybe I'll even get the artist on. There were a lot of lessons learned, and I don't want to compare it to the Ari Lennox situation, but it was similar in the sense that there were some implications of, well, we'll just wait. I mean, I feel like the artist dropped the ball, and then I guess we all dropped the ball. The label dropped the ball, and then we, as the artist, kind of followed suit because we were waiting on cues from the label. It was a mess. So lesson learned.
Unlimited licenses are only good for producers who will never sell the exclusive rights. And it's only good for artists, not producers who plan on selling the exclusive rights. Secondly, you talked about having more publishing down the line or publishing revenue coming in down the line. But how are you going to get this publishing revenue from artists and teams or artist teams who don't even know how to register your song past DistroKid? Now, this clip was a clip from a long, lengthy YouTube video. All right. So you're just seeing this on Instagram. So chill out. You also stated that there was a difference between a lease and a license. That's not true, dude. Like, licenses and leases are essentially the same concept. There's a difference between exclusive rights and non-exclusive licenses. Okay, so get that right before you start talking like that. Lastly, record labels are not in business to not own masters. That's what they do, is own masters, and artists willingly sign up for it. Okay, so preaching that, you know what I mean? I need to keep. Record labels will never let the producer ever keep the master. Point blank, period. Not even the independent record labels want to do that.
So this was a response to a comment, and which is good because it added an extra layer of clarity so I could really understand what points he's making. And the person he's responding to in this video said something kind of wild, which was there's a difference between a lease and a license. And I'm like, no, a lease is just a term for a certain kind of license. So he's absolutely right about that. I agree with some of the things he's saying, you know, like record labels are in the business of owning masters. That is their revenue model by and large. I don't understand why he believes unlimited leases specifically are problematic for producers. They're a higher price point. The artist doesn't have to renew the lease if they surpass a certain amount of streams. So maybe he's saying it's bad because the producer won't get paid more as it generates more revenue. But I mean, I don't want to get into this, but something like 95% of all songs uploaded by unsigned artists never make it past 1 million streams. So it kind of balances out. It's like a lottery ticket.
But I mean, he's also right that people don't register their songs appropriately.
Yeah.
You know, so
see, right. that was a big part of that. Sorry, Dame, go ahead.
So, yeah. So, you know, a lot of producers, I'm sure, are missing out on royalties because the beats that get used aren't registered with all of the different organizations to collect their money. I have always felt uncomfortable with like producers that lease beats and then like sell it exclusively, like that same beat that gets sold exclusively. So then what happens to the people that lease the beat up until that point? You know, that can get really messy. I don't know if it sounds like unlimited leases, you know, gives producers a little bit more money. What's the difference with your price paying from maybe the initial, like what are the different price points for your beats?
I mean, the unlimited is definitely almost twice as much as the higher limited. But it, you know, I'm always running deals, so it kind of brings the price down anyway.
I would prefer if, you know, I don't care if it's unlimited, not unlimited. I would prefer that producers have like a batch of beats that are available for lease and then like a total different batch of beats that are available for exclusive. I don't like when a beat that is available for lease, and then you can also buy the exclusive rights if you pay $2,000 for it or $3,000 for it. I get that most producers are going to continue to do that because they're not going to say no to a bigger budget, especially if they don't have the funds, or aren't doing that well. Somebody comes to you and be like, well, I'll just give you $5,000 for it. And I know you do a different calculation because sometimes those beats are selling really well, like the leases are selling really well, and that one-time payout for an exclusive license doesn't make sense for you because that beat is selling really, really well. But that kind of stuff gets messy. I don't see a problem with selling unlimited licenses. I would just prefer that beat, like I said, there's a bucket of lease beats, and then there's, I can either make something exclusive for you or this is my exclusive batch. I know it doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's more that when I don't know what's going to sell. And when I release a beat, hey, maybe 10 people lease it and then 5 people want to buy the exclusive. I normally talk them out of it and say, it's probably not even worth the price point. And granted, in the agreements, how it works, at least in the default BeatStars agreements, if you sell a beat exclusively, so let's say you sell 5 leases and then you sell the exclusive rights on the 6th sale to an artist, the first 5 are still valid for the length of their term. But obviously, as we know, Content ID is a mess, but I don't see that as anything unique to beat leasing versus exclusives, because I get Content ID on loops and samples that I own.
Wait. Content ID. Sorry for cutting you off, Payne. Just want to catch that point, though. So for that term, so what is the term?
Well, that depends. Everyone can set their term. So if the term is, say, 5 years or 100,000 streams, once an artist gets 100,000 streams on a non-exclusive license, and whoever owns the exclusive rights to that can say, all right, you're done.
So I don't think artists understand that when they're leasing a beat, because I would assume that an artist leases a beat, uses it, and let's just say, somebody then purchases it exclusively. All right, their term is up. So what do they got to do now? They got to take down their song. They can't monetize it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think they would be able to negotiate with the artist and the producer now, which is why, the way I look at leasing is like, all right, if the song works, it works. If it doesn't, you didn't waste a bunch of your money on it. You know what I mean? Like if you get a package of beats, if you get 3 beats for $30 or something, you drop those songs, maybe one of them is your biggest record ever, and you would be crazy not to go back to the producer after that and say, all right, we need to figure something out. But if it's sitting there for 5 years and your term is 5 years or your term is 10 years and it's sitting at 500 streams that whole time, you didn't make a cent off of it. Well, thank goodness you only spent $10 on that license. You know what I mean? You didn't. Well, hopefully you didn't break the bank.
What about, and obviously this would be a rare occasion. Let's just say the beat that I made a song to, it now has 10 million, 20 million, 30 million streams, but my term is up. Somebody had purchased the exclusive license and now they're being an asshole, and it's still getting, a good amount of streams monthly or annually. It could just get, depending on the personalities and where those people are at in their career and what's in their bank account, like it can get real nasty.
That's what happened with Old Town Road, if I'm not mistaken. It was like a BeatStars lease, if I'm not mistaken. And then the song blew. They came back and offered him some bread because it was just blowing on the internet at first. And then it turned into like a whole thing. And they had to go buy the exclusive. And then because I guess with the lease, he, as the producer, wasn't getting, pub or anything. I don't know. It was something weird. And I remember it being very complicated. And the guy ended up with a lot of money, which I'm not mad about with the producer, to be honest. But I also feel like I do get what you're saying, Dame, but I feel like it's more of like due diligence on the buyer's part, not on the seller's part. Because I think, especially if you're disclosing it up front, I don't think it's anything like shady. I agree. It's annoying. I had a situation where a song was like essentially like an interlude on a radio for one of my artists, and it was just like a 15-second clip, and I loved the song, but it was a lease, and we were just like, we knew other people had recorded on it, and we were like, if this artist at their size puts this out, it really could blow. It was crossing genres, and we were like, this could get really expensive. So I tried, but it was a headache and a half trying to get the producer to respond, the other songwriter, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I totally get it, because I'm with Dame on like how much of a headache it is. But I also feel like that's on the buyer. Like if you choose to like a song that's a lease, or if you choose a lease and then, yeah, I don't know. I think it's more on the buyer.
And I'm not suggesting anything shady going on. I just think that, and don't get me wrong, like most songs don't get to this point because most songs aren't going to get millions of streams. I get that. I just think that in the event that it does, like, one, you should be mindful. But I mean, artists aren't reading through terms on. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but
neither are producers, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're not reading terms on BeatStars contracts. I just always prefer that you lock in with producers, develop a sound, and just kind of, build and grow it when you have networked and found your tribe, to develop your sound. Everybody's on the same page on what the splits are. Use BeatStars beats to get your reps in, to get your talent up, and to get some consistency in making music. But once you start having some success, these are the type of things that you find yourself in. Should you not read the terms of and understand how ownership works?
Well, to counter that, I think ultimately what it is a matter of perspective that's at the core of whatever disagreement any of us, including Casey from that video, actually have. So this is just my feeling, because Case Boogie, who's in that video, he has Grammys on his wall. He's got a plaque on his wall. So my assumption here is that he's more in the traditional music industry and not in the kind of newer beat leasing world, even though it's not that new. So his statement that producers who are leasing beats aren't going to get placements, to me, kind of said it all, because a lot of industry producers don't understand that. I didn't either back when I was just focused on the industry and not leasing. I hated leasing back then. So he's basically saying that you're never going to get that beat placed if you're leasing it with unlimited rights, which one isn't true, but it begs the question of that might be the point. So to address a lot of the things that you said, Dame, I had a beat go viral, over 2 million views on YouTube. And not only did it generate about $50,000, maybe more. It was a collab, so it was split. And that was just in leasing. But it added thousands of customers to my email list. It put millions of eyes on my channel. And so it benefited me in a lot of ways. I would never sell that beat exclusively, I don't think. I mean, unless someone paid me some astronomical, asinine amount of money, which they would not, and they should not. So it's kind of like I'm looking at that video saying, well, why would I want to lease this or sell a successful beat? That's not my goal with this track. I think in the music industry, capital M, capital I, people look at producers on the internet and they got their noses up because they're like, why would you want to lease a beat? That doesn't make sense. Why don't you want to sell it exclusively? If I had sold that same beat exclusively, I probably would have gotten $10,000 up front, split that with my co-producers, and then that probably would have been it, because it was a very musical and cinematic sounding beat, not a single. I don't think it would have gone viral. The kind of artists that would have worked on that, they would have had a successful song, but it wouldn't have generated enough for us to recoup to the extent that we'd be getting paid more than the lease. And I actually had one bigger artist. I've had a couple bigger artists reach out about buying the beat. And one of them, I talked to their lawyer, and he went from we would never, ever lease this beat. It needs to be exclusive, to a month later saying, hey, you know what? We are actually open to that. And we got it worked out. And then there was another artist that was, maybe as big or bigger. Both of you know who this artist is. I'll tell you off camera. But he reached out and was like, hey, I like that beat. Can I use it or something? And I was like, yeah, just we'll figure it out. Because I was going to do the same thing. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'll be honest with you and say, look, it doesn't benefit you to buy this beat exclusively. Like, you wouldn't have the money that we would need to release it to you exclusively. And it wouldn't even make sense, I don't think, for you to spend that kind of money on it. So let's just work it out. You'll still get it, but I need to disclose all the content ID stuff for you. It shouldn't be a huge problem, and it wouldn't have been a problem. And then he got really upset. But I know his budget was in the hundreds, not even the thousands for beats. So now I'm looking at him like, oh, you got that industry mentality too, where why would I ever turn you down? Because I'm making 1,000 times more than what you offered. And that's a big disconnect in perspective. The music industry thinks we're running around scraping pennies to buy lunch, when in reality, sometimes we're making a lot more than we would on a major placement. And also, because his main thing was a label will never license. I made a video where I explained how Soulja Boy's last hit single, She Make It Clap, was a lease beat, and it dropped under a major label imprint. That's Warner. SODMG is Warner. We know about Old Town Road. We know about Panda. We know about Houston Old Head. We know about Leave Me Alone. All those beats were on BeatStars. The artist got them, leased them, and then when they blew up, then either in the case of Soulja Boy, they negotiated so it remained an unlimited lease, which is wild, but it shows you that the music business is changing, or they just bought it out. The labels, I don't think the labels care that someone has leased that beat, because unfortunately they can steamroll over whatever situation. They're going to get preference on streaming. No one's going to get confused about it. But the biggest part to me, and I'll share my screen for this, is the non-transferability stipulation that I think it's standard in a lot of agreements, but this is just by default. If you click right here, use of the beat immediately, and this is for one of my leases. I didn't change this language. This is just how it came. In consideration for licensee's payment of the license fee, the producer hereby grants licensee a limited, non-exclusive, non-transferable license. That's incredibly important. I don't want to get too far into the other legal language, but what that basically means, he's right. Casey's right that labels do by and large want ownership of a song. So they wouldn't generally want to take a song that's on a non-exclusive beat. But realistically, the labels want money at the end of the day. And so if there's money, they would rather get some money than none in a lot of cases, especially knowing labels are rigid. We talked about that with Ari Lennox. They don't adapt, but some of them are. So this non-transferability language that I told you about means if the song blows up and a label wants the song, the artist can't just say, okay, cool, it's mine here. What they have to do is they have to go back and negotiate with the artist and the producer. So if one of my beats is recorded to that song blows up, and this has happened before, now it's a new contract because I didn't sell the beat. Even if it's an exclusive, I didn't sell the beat to Interscope. I sold the beat to this rapper. So the rapper has to get paid again through the label, and I have to get paid again through the label. The one final thing I'll say, Dame, because you brought this up about the publishing, when he said, how are you going to get publishing if the artists and their teams don't even know how to register the track? This is the simplest answer ever. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't bring this up. Just because you're a producer doesn't mean you can't register the title with a PRO or a microsync agency. Or get a sync license and negotiate separately for that. That part was confusing to me because I can debunk it so easily. Like if a song drops, those royalties, at least the performance royalties on the underlying composition copyright side, are just sitting there for up to 2 years. So at any time you can claim them if the artist didn't claim them. And if the artist incorrectly registered, you can conflict.
But how do you even know that the song dropped? Like, are you paying attention to when your songs are used? And how do you know that it's out there? Like, what are you doing to know that the song even got released and when?
Well, you can use Beat ID. There are a lot of tools that a producer can use. for the most part, yeah, you don't. And so maybe that's another reason he thinks that leasing is bad for the producer, because it is hard to track. But and that's happened, labels steal songs all the time and cut producers out. Unfortunately, that's been around forever. I don't think that's something unique to the beat leasing era at all. It's not. Actually, I know that it's not. If and when that happens, what do you do when a label is making a bunch of money and they've cut you out of the process? Now you're embroiled in some sort of legal battle.
Or not even I'm just talking about independent artists. I mean, folks don't really have their stuff, and they might not be doing it maliciously, but I'm sure people don't come back to you and be like, "Hey, Payne, just release this. Make sure you put this data in your Excel spreadsheet so you can track and how this is going." Like that's not how stuff to be.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they don't. But I think there's so much ignorance is bliss going around the world. A lot of us will never find out about a lot of stuff. What I found over time is the one blessing of the curse of Content ID is that when somebody has their song out and it's doing well, even if it's not doing well, they've probably registered the Content ID on their song, even though they're not supposed to do that. And so because I have all my music on YouTube, I'm going to get copyright claims. So I see which artist is doing that. And then I can monitor what kind of numbers they're doing. That's normally what I do. When I get the copyright claim against me, I'm like, let me see who this person is. Cause 4 times out of 10, the beat has tags on it. So I have to contact them and say, hey, here's an opportunity for you to actually pay me to use the beat legally. Otherwise you got to take it down, which, is a good opportunity for me potentially. But sometimes you look at it and you say, oh, wow, this artist is doing well. Let me make sure that it's registered, not just for my sake, but for their sake as well.
I think my topic is interesting because there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And a year ago or 2 years ago, I might have said it differently. But like I said at the top of the episode, I'm here in Austin, and I had dinner last night with just a handful, not even a handful, a very small amount of powerful founders, me and Brandon, my co-founder, and powerful in the sense that there are a ton of eyes on them, but also their companies are valued at a lot of money. And they work together. It's an ecosystem of people who care about each other. And so I think that's what's really cool, what's happening in Austin in the tech and startup world, is that it feels a lot like Atlanta's music scene, where people are just working together and people are killing it. But it's like, yeah, but we're going to go have dinner and then we're going to talk about business tomorrow again. And then, it's like we're all in this together type vibes. So considering what I said, at the top of this, I taught at UT and I don't have a degree. I'm sitting at this powerful founders table. And even the event it's Austin Tech Week this week. So the event that I went to last night, I was meeting we're at the bar. One co-founder asked what I do. I give him the rundown and we talk for the next 45 minutes. I introduce him to Brandon. He starts telling me about his wife. It's this whole thing. So it's a really important networking night. Super cool. And I had this thought last night that your network can essentially help you navigate through any shortcoming or anything that holds you back from the potential of your vision of success, right? And I want to say that carefully because I do believe, because Payne brought this up, I do believe that a lot of people believe that there's this myth that if I just know the right people, every door will be unlocked to me. But it's not true. If you know the right people and you speak their language, and then you have at least enough to sustain you or to back up what you're doing, then people are super interested. For example, the co-founder that I met yesterday at the bar, he's telling me this concept and it's phenomenal. And I'm asking him all of these questions because I think it's an actual working app already. After 20 minutes, I'm like, yo, do you have an MVP? And he's like, no, it's just a concept. The thing is, he'll probably get a shit ton of money because it's a fully vetted concept. Like the way he was talking about it, I thought it was already in the world as a beta, whatever. The difference between him and most people that I do meet in Atlanta or other cities that I privy often with a lot of creatives is they have a concept that they haven't vetted enough to even be able to talk about in the language that people with money will talk about. So I just kind of want to talk about network. I think there are a lot of misnomers, but I started realizing I'm like, I don't have a degree. And I'm sitting with people who have billion-dollar companies investing in them, who have generated and driven hundreds and thousands of dollars in revenue or profit, but driven millions in revenue. Do you know what I'm saying? And they're just like having the conversation with me, inviting me to it wasn't like a private dinner. We just all went to dinner because we know each other, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't like, oh, okay, our little flunky Erinn, like I'm in the conversation, you know? And I think about, I'm not saying one route is better than the other. I just think a lot of times people would assume that the strategic disadvantage that you have by not going to school will always be a handicap. And I don't think it has to always be a handicap. You can work through it by increasing your network, increasing your knowledge base, and, you know, doubling down on building out ideas. So would love to have y'all's thoughts on that, though.
So I did go to school. I went to undergrad at Cal, and then I went back and got my MBA from Stanford. And that's probably the biggest piece from those experiences is the network. I was literally just at one of my best friends. His mom turned 70. I grew up with them, so I was always at her house. She makes the most amazing deviled eggs, so I for sure was pulling up on the holidays. But she turned 70, and then my best friend's nephew goes to school at a high school here locally in LA, plays football, and he's super fast. And he got good grades. He's a good student. I think he runs like a 10-700, and then he plays football as well. And I was just asking him, like, yo, man, what are you doing next year? Because it's his senior year. You know, he's got to be applying for colleges. And he was still kind of like, he's still like up in the air. And, you know, I'm still connected to the Cal community, and it's not for sure that I could just walk him into Cal. I don't have that kind of clout. But as soon as I left, I hit the chat. I hit my alpha chat. I'm in a fraternity called Alpha Alpha. I hit the alpha chat. I was like, yo, anybody in here still connected to Cal Track? I got a cat that's super smart, so it makes sense for him to be at Cal. And he's super fast. He's running a 10-7. I'm sure he can shave some time off that. And I'm sure that's competitive for D1 track. But Cal's not the craziest track. You know, it's not like I'm sure there's a lot of huge, like Texas schools that have a lot of the faster cats, but I'm sure it's competitive. So hit me right back. And it was like, hey, Dame, this is the email. She runs all of men and women's track. Reach out to her and let's have a conversation. So your network is extremely valuable. You know, again, I don't know if this is going to walk him into Cal, but it's definitely a contact that they didn't have. And hopefully, because he's done the work, you know, it's not like I'm trying to get somebody that runs a 13.5, you know, and just got 900 on the SATs. Like, nah, this cat pretty much gets all A's, is super fast. He's ready for the opportunity. So I think like what Erinn was saying in terms of talking the language, like you have to be prepared for these. You have to do your part, because networking can only take you so far. Like you can't walk a dumbass into rooms. You can walk people that are prepared and are ready, have their business plan, are smart. So I see it all the time. Like I think I have a pretty strong network. I'm not going to say it's the best, but I feel like I can get to most people at this point. And if I'm ready for the opportunity, I think that the dots can align. But your network is so important, you know, in music and beyond. So I understand.
Networking is just another one of those concepts that people don't get. And it's wild to me because I'll get messages, I'll get texts, I'll get DMs from people I don't know that says, hey, I just want to network with you. Like that's not how that works. Like you don't walk up to someone and say, hey, I want to flirt with you. You just do it. So people are just wild. Like networking is just something that happens when two people have an initial rapport and then grow it further over time. A lot of people are like, let me network. Hey, what's your name? Yeah, I'm a rapper. Here's my demo. I'm out. And they do that 20 times at a conference and they're like, whew, I networked my ass off. You didn't do shit. I'm sorry that's so harsh, but I had to learn that the hard way too. We were giving demos out to people just walking through. That's not networking, man. That's handing people some shit that they didn't want. So I saw something on Threads. I want to say it was where someone posted, and of course it was controversial because what isn't controversial? They posted something that said, artists need to stop focusing on networking with people and start focusing on attracting listeners. Because when what Dame was saying, all right, so when you network with somebody, you can talk all day. I think we all know people like that. Like I know a ton of people who network in the music business. They're everywhere. They know everybody. And they've never reaped any of the benefits of that network because they don't have anything. You know what I mean? Like they're just the cool dude that'll spend money with the execs and they'll be around them. But then what? Nothing. You'll have a 10-year relationship with someone. And if you don't have anything that they actually will benefit from or that they like or that they feel passionate about, what you have is a friendship, which is fine. But I think a lot of people look at a network like I can get anything done if I just meet the right people. No, you get things done and then you meet the right people. So when you're networking with, especially people who are up here in the field and you're down here with artists, right? Come with listeners. If you come and you're like, my music is the hottest shit ever, I got 5 monthly listeners. But if you have social proof, if you're like, yeah, I've been touring, this is the fan base I have, eventually something cool is going to happen. Or like a producer, you're saying, I got great beats. And then the person's like, well, let me hear something. Oh, well, you can just Google. You're not prepared.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, because there's always somebody that comes out the woodwork and be like, oh, you don't have to network. My thing is like, you don't have to do a lot of things, right? And you can still have success. Like that's the great thing about the music industry today, right? Like you can have success without touring. Like you don't have to tour. There was a point, and there probably is still some people today that will tell you that you have to tour. You don't have to. It depends on what level of success you want to have. If you just want to pay your bills, live comfortably, make a good life, you don't have to pull all these levers, right? You don't have to tour. You really don't have to network, right? You could just build your fan base in your room and build that way. But my response to you would be like, why aren't you pulling these levers when you can go so much faster? Like you'd increase the chances of success 10-fold, 20-fold, 100-fold if you pull all these levers. So sure, there is a speck of a chance that you can be successful if you don't use social media somehow. I'm sure there's a speck of a chance. But why would you make things harder, something that's already that much more difficult? Like, why wouldn't you do these things that you can grow to do if you just apply yourself? Like, you could be a shy person. Like, networking is a skill. There's a course that I put together for Zoo Labs that I'm sure is still available that is free. You just go to Zoo Labs. It's a networking course. I think Erinn did a course on, what'd you do, a course on events or something? I forget what your course was on.
It was called I Wouldn't Tour If I Were You.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's courses on Zoo Labs on networking. But the last thing I will say about networking is that it requires you to learn the skill and practice, because you have to be an emotionally intelligent person, right? You probably know what you are saying, but do you know how people are receiving your communication, right? You know exactly what you said, but do you know what the tone of what you said communicated? Do you know what your gestures communicated? Do you know what the volume communicated? Like, that's the emotionally intelligent piece that you probably don't have a strong sense of unless you've been in unless you're well networked and have been in these environments and gotten a lot of feedback along the way to know. So yeah, networking is crucial. Go to the class, Zoolabs. I think it's zoolabs.com. Check out Erinn's course. Check out my course. There's a bunch of courses there. It's free. We ain't selling nothing. But it's important.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. But I think to Payne's point as well, I just networked my ass off. Again, I spoke at UT. One of the students said, "Oh, you also live in Nashville? I'm trying to work at UMG Nashville." And I go, "Oh." And I mentioned the head of UMG Nashville because I met her in Austin 2 years ago before she was the head of UMG Nashville when I knew I wanted to get into country music. She's a Black woman, super tight, right? I'm not going to say her name because of this very specific example, but it's not hard to Google who the head of UMG Nashville is. I said, "Oh, da-da-da-da. She's an incredible human." I was like, I am not friends with her, but I know some people over there, Long story short, the chick leaves class early, emails me, says, "Hey, can you introduce me to the head of UMG at Nashville? I'm interested in getting a job there." I just met you in class.
Yeah, and that's not even how a job application.
But here's the thing. I literally said, we are not friends.
Yeah.
Professionally, we know each other, but I'm literally just a fan. I'm like, a Black woman is running country music right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Or has a predominant voice in country music right now. So I'm just studying and watching her. But I've been in the room with her a ton of times because I'm trying to be in the space with her. I've been networking with her for 2 years. And I'm not making that type of request for myself. I just happened to have her email because somebody was trying to connect us on something and I already knew who she was. And you know what I'm saying? That's crazy work.
You know what this is though? This is what I call it in my head. It's the shoot your shot culture.
Sure.
Because, you look on social media and someone will be like, doing something ridiculous. Like, they're lying on the ground after just waking up from a drug-induced coma, and they ask the paramedic who's like infinitely more conventionally attractive than them for their number, and everyone in the comments is like, "You got to shoot your shot." Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And that applies to business. You know what I mean? Where it'll be like someone who I got one monthly listener, but I jumped on a record exec's back at a Steak and Shake and rap my song.
Story, the rapping, the like audacious big moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But Big Sean was actually good.
I'm not knocking her for hitting me. I'm just saying, one, you don't get far with me if you don't pay attention. I already said I had already basically gone ahead of that. But two, you haven't even networked with me enough for me to feel my reputation is everything. I have spent so long building it, and there's still a lot of people who have preconceived notions and misconceptions of me. On the opposite foot, the guy that was telling me about his startup asked me about what I'm doing, likes what I'm doing so much. He said, "Hey, you got to meet my wife. She actually has a VC that she runs that's specifically for for-profit social impact companies." In one conversation, I'm already setting up a meeting with somebody who could change my life because it didn't require me to say, "Oh, I got to know this guy, hang out with him forever." But that's what Dame is talking about, the emotional understanding to say when is the right moment to utilize it. And again, I wasn't selling. I wasn't like, I'm trying to meet VCs by any means. He was just like, "You're fascinating. What do you do?" Boom, 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 boom. We talk 10 minutes in. He's like, "Oh, you got to meet my wife. Da, da, da. And this person also runs this VC. Do you know this person? I got to introduce you to this person." That's how most of my network has grown. Me being me and good at what I've done. Like you said, Payne, you do something and then people want to come network with you, or when you go to network with people, it's a way easier conversation. So I think sometimes it is 2, 3, 5, 7. There's deals happening right now for me with people that I've known for 7 or 8 years. But it wasn't because I went in looking for them to give me something.
Well, that's key. And I don't want to be the guy that says, all right, you need to be fully formed in order to network. So I'm sorry if I made it seem that way. Like you need to walk into a room with people and you need to have some sort of material value for them to exploit in order to forge a relationship.
You do.
Well, I would say you don't if you understand what networking is, because you can network with somebody, as you said, Erinn. The head of UMG Nashville has no idea really what you do, and you've known her for 2 years. So maybe on the 4th year, something happens. So networking is a long game. The problem is people who walk up and they're like, I'm trying to network with you. They want a result, and they want a result from you, not a result that's co-authored by the two of you. So that's my advice. Networking, like it's like a friendship or anything. People are going to sniff out your motives.
Yeah. So what I would say is, and this goes along with what the both of you guys are saying, is like people don't appreciate the small wins anymore. They're looking like the young lady that, and I'm assuming it was a young lady that went, Erinn said that she knows this person, and then they went directly for that person, as opposed to like the small win that they have right in front of them with Erinn, and then chance to build and connect with Erinn. During the Game from the Gods, Ray Daniels has this exercise where he asks people to like get his number. Like, what are you gonna say to get his number? And it's a fun exercise. There's a lot of learning that comes out of it, but like, I'm never the person that's going to try to like get somebody's number. What I'm trying to do is hopefully say something that makes you remember me. Like I'm planting the seed. Like I'm not trying to get somebody's, because I don't feel like, unless it's somebody that I've been following for a while, already have something ready to go, like to present. My goal is to just say something that you remember, because I'm going to see you again. This industry's small. I know somebody that knows somebody that knows you. There's going to be another event. If I can just say something, plant a seed, that's my goal. And that's probably, that's why I like to participate as a commenter in that exercise. I don't like, because one time in the DC event, like I was the person that they were trying to get the number, and that just made me uncomfortable. Like, why are you trying to get my number? Like, just plant the seed. We're going to see each other. We follow each other on social media, or you could do something. Things are going to come back. So long story short, like appreciate the small wins, because everybody knows, if you follow me for a minute, like I'm always saying, build on small wins. Like you don't get to the grand slam unless you hit a few singles and doubles. Have some patience, like Payne said, and appreciate those small wins. As soon as you jump to try to hit a grand slam without even a practice swing yet, that just lets me know that you're a novice at this. And again, it goes back to that emotional intelligence. Other people are going to pick up on that, and they're not going to want to be associated with you at all. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have either of you ever met someone and then like within a day, week, or even month, they've given you an opportunity, like early on in your careers?
Yeah. So the top of my career, Kevin Lyman, I met him on a Friday, and on Saturday.
I remember that story. He was drunk. Yeah, that's a crazy story.
Even though I had just met him, I spent 6 months studying him, and I watched every interview, read every vlog post, watched YouTube, everything. So by the time I got to him, the band was prepared. I was as prepared as I could be. I didn't know shit, but I was very bold, and I was scared, and I got past all my things. But yeah, met him on a Friday. Saturday, he was putting us on tour. So and that's happened to me several times. Like I met somebody in March, and then they found out in Atlanta, we're on the same board together. And when I met him at our first board meeting, within the next week, we were both in Nashville, and he was like, oh, if you're in Nashville, like, let's do da-da-da. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And I don't know, I guess he's dealt with a lot of young people who say, yeah, da-da-da. And I pulled up. I actually was supposed to be in Austin. I just pushed my trip back to be in the same city with them. And it led to me meeting da-da-da-da. And then I got a speaking opportunity, and then it led to, yeah. So like that happens to me often, but I think it's because, like Dame said, I'm not trying to get you to give me anything right now. I want you to remember me. I'm easy to remember for a lot of reasons, but I work on that too. Because I used to feel like, especially the way I was brought up, my parents would always try to be like, let people know you for your merit. And I don't think meritocracy is the best way to look at life, especially when you work in a creative agency, which is why I will agree with you, Payne, that it's not about immediately an exchange. But my thought is, let me be memorable. So I work really hard on being memorable without being loud. So I have a signature scent. I wear certain colors that inform certain things when I'm in public. I have a hook. When people ask me what I do, I say I'm myself for a living. So it's like from the way that I smell to the first words that I say when you ask me something, to even like I have the flying saucer on my hand. So when people say, where are you from? I'm like, I'm an ATLian. And then I show them my hand. So immediately you're like, wait, she did something with her hand. All of these things are intentional and practiced because I'm doing what Dame is saying. I'm trying to make myself memorable. I'm trying to make you curious so that when you ask about me, or if you go see me on social media, you're like, she's backing that up because she's here. What does she do? And that's like going to be my first show. My media company's first offering is a show called What Do You Do? I've been filming that for the last several months and had to redo. But it's because that's the most common question I get asked. And now it's going to be the thing that fuels and feeds me. So I think, one, you have to be way more intentional about networking. Like Payne said, respectfully, I don't give a fuck about your music. I don't want your CD. I don't want your download card. I don't want any of that. Like, are you a cool person? Are you kind? Do you have something unique about you? I may go listen on my own just because you were cool to talk to. You know what I'm saying? It's way deeper than that. And I feel some type of way when somebody sees me on this podcast or meets me in person and immediately DMs me and asks me for something. Because, like, I'm from the South. You always come bringing a gift. You come to somebody's house with something. You speak first, and then you offer some helpful advice or your gratitude. You congratulate them. You come in asking for something is the quickest way. Actually, quickest way for me to ignore you is to spell my name wrong. Then after that is to ask me for something and we just met. Don't do that.
I'm not, I mean, I like Erinn's approach. There's nothing wrong with that, but like, I'm not as prepared. Like, I feel like, you know, as you live life, and every encounter is different, right? I don't know what to pull out of my bag just yet. Right. But I know I've been to school. I've lived long enough now to have quite a few experiences that in our first interaction, I might pull from a different bag, right? You know, oh, this person's from California. I'm from California too. Oh, this person is from London. Oh, I lived in London, right? Oh, this person's part of a fraternity. I'm a part of a fraternity. Oh, we might be part of the same fraternity. Like, again, you live life and you have different experiences. And when you meet people, you figure out like how you might be able to connect with that person. In the music industry, I feel like I stand out just by being normal. Like, just by being a regular cat.
That's a fact. And consistent. Like, you're consistently normal. Like, you always show up as the same person.
And you just cool and you do what you say you're going to do. You get a lot of free points from the most basic of shit in the music industry. Oh, you showed up on time. Oh, you were a little early. Oh, that's crazy. Never seen, like, what? You've never seen that before. That's wild that you've never seen anybody come a little early to something. Like, it's different. I respect Erinn's approach. I like Erinn's approach, but, you know, everybody's approach is going to be different. But again, that's where you just have to have command over your approach, and you have to understand how your approach resonates with people. And then if it's not resonating favorably, you have to change it up and have the ability to do so.
And I'll be real, Dame, like, you know, I'm not some big exec, but when I've had any sort of opportunities, you know, sometimes we all get little opportunities, you know, who could fill this performance slot for $200? Who could do this? Who could take on this opportunity? the first people that come to mind aren't the most talented. They're going to be the people that have consistently shown up. I'm like, you know what? I don't even think that dude's that good of a rapper. I don't even think she's the greatest songwriter, but I'll be damned if she's not early. And let's contact them, put some money in their pockets. So you're right.
Yeah. I'm always trying to help the people that I just know are cool people. Like constantly. I'm constantly throwing assists to people that I think are just solid folks. Like I try to get as many opportunities to Payne as I can. Anytime somebody needs a beat, Payne is the first cat that I think about. Like because I know I respect his talent, but I know he's going to respond quickly. And I know ultimately, should it happen, it's going to look favorable on me too, because whatever they create is going to be dope. Networking for me is now fairly easy. But if I look back at it and then I'm honest, like it took a long time to learn like how I should be networking. But last thing, go to the class, zoolabs.com, networking class. Everything I said today and some is in that class. So check it out.
All right. Check that out. Network and learn how to network. I think for some people it comes naturally, for some people it doesn't. So it's useful to really understand what all goes into it. And it seems maybe a little intimidating, but it's just a learned skill like anything else. We appreciate you tuning in and watching us. This is our 11th episode as MEC 2.0. So we've already broken the 10 episode mark, which it feels good. And thank you for following us to the new channel. Thank you for going to tolost.com using the code MEC and getting 3 free months of premium free music distribution. Get your music on all the platforms, not just the big ones like Spotify and Apple Music, but all of them, ones that you've never even heard of, honestly, but people are using and can be a source of ears and royalties. Tolost.com. The code is MEC. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back next week. Peace.